Nick from Mikey Tableman.
Go for Mikey Tableman.
Hey, have you finished the floor plan yet?
Yeah, wrapping it up right now. Go for Danny J. Gomez.
Go for Danny.
Danny, meet me at table 101 to finalize this floor plan.
Copy, copy.
Rolling doors in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the chaos.
I'm Mikey Tableman.
This is Danny J. Gomez.
And this is Chaos Controlled. It took a while, but I'm glad we got to get back to this point of, especially working with you. I've definitely missed you in that aspect. But just getting to do stuff on the creative side, which is what we've all wanted to do for such a long time in aspects like this.
Yeah, it's amazing how life works where, I mean, I haven't seen you in, it's got to be at least 3+ years, right?
Probably around that, yeah. I mean, we always stayed in touch, but it's just more that, like, it's funny how when we all started in nightclubs together, and I met you when I started at Greystone, and you were the lead over there, to think that there's so many people that have come in and out of our lives from that point, but we all managed to come full circle and be back here. Like, there's still a lot of people from the nightlife days I keep in touch with, but it's really cool that so many people I've seen have used the nightlife that we've all been in and the network we've all made to then enhance their careers in so many different aspects, because people don't realize the network and the things that we learn from this whole nightlife thing that we take part in. Everybody sees it and just thinks it's this debauchery. Which it is, too. We've definitely had our fun, and I can't wait to tell some of those stories. But there's a whole other aspect to it that I don't think people really know exists.
And I think that's the point of why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Because the conversation that we had was we all lived through this nightlife experience that a lot of people don't understand. They see it as this, like you said, debauchery, craziness. But also we learned a lot about ourselves, and we made friends, and it really kind of molded us into what we're doing now.
Oh, definitely. And like, I think when you said like meet people, when I moved to LA, the first thing I did is I got a job at Create Nightclub. So like my existence and my introduction to LA was the nightclub scene. I mean, I was back in nightclubs in New York. I bartended, I ran the doors at a bunch of really popular spots, but you come out here in the mecca of entertainment and it's a whole different world. Like, I was a bartender back home, and then they're like, oh, you got to be a TSA. I'm like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, wait, what? And then they told me, I'm like, okay, got it. Okay, no problem. Fucking simple. But I don't think people realize, like, that there's a whole saying in LA that the people suck here, and that's true. However, I've been lucky enough in this nightlife world, which I think people would find that crazy, to have, like, a family of people. Like, the best people I've ever met are some of the people that I've worked with in fucking nightclubs.
Yeah, no, and like you said, the bartending thing, I'm from New Orleans, so before I moved to LA, I was steady bartending on Bourbon Street. I had worked like 5 Mardi Gras, so I knew how to deal with volume and craziness. So when I started with SBE, they put me as a TSA, and I did the same thing. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, I'm behind the sticks. Like, I need to be bartending. But then the fun and the freedom that I found from TSAing is like, it's just different. It literally is a whole different world.
Absolutely.
Being on the floor.
And just so people are aware, a TSA, like I said, is kind of the bar back. It's tables. You are the cocktail waitress's right-hand man. You make sure that, you know, the ice is restocked, the juices are there. You do the cleaning. You run and get all the stuff the girls need so they can sit there and upsell and make us all money, because that's how we make money. Is by people coming in, buying thousands and thousands of dollars worth of champagne, which is still mind-blowing to me, some of the things that we've seen in the 14 party we used to work, which we'll touch on that one at some point, I'm sure. But just the whole concept of what we do is still mind-blowing to people. Like, anybody outside of the nightlife industry has a really hard time fathoming what our lives are like sometimes.
Absolutely. And for those people who, because I don't think you've explained what a TSA is, but it's short for tableside assistant. We're not working at the airport. We're not TSAs, which is always funny.
Because when I tell people I'm a TSA, they're like, you work at the airport? I was like, no.
Right.
No, absolutely not. So it's definitely, it's an experience. That's what I'm going to say. So I can't wait to show the other side of it, because people go to nightclubs, but they don't see what it actually takes to run the nightclubs. And like what we do, we were the backbones of the nightclub. We both moved into management at some point, obviously. That's kind of the trend of how it goes. It's a terrible idea. Don't ever go into nightclub management, just for anybody who's thinking about it.
Unless that's what you want to do.
Unless that's what you want to do, then go ahead. More power to you. That's impressive, because
Right.
Man, I look back and I'm so grateful for some of our homies, but I remember some nights seeing some of them. I'm just like, man, tough. That's tough right now.
Yeah. Yeah, but if you have any other idea for your life, do that.
Obviously, I moved up into management on the Insomniac side, and I went into overseeing the festival. So it was a little bit different. I wasn't stuck at a nightclub consistently. I get to travel the world and throw different parties in different places. But even that, man, it's stressful.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people realize the stress of, like, there are so many moving parts, and especially in a nightclub scene or especially in a festival scene, on that deck or in that club, you got people spending, thousands and thousands of dollars. I have some festivals where, like, we're raking in 4, 5, 6 mil. Every person on that deck that's spending money, or every person at the club, thinks they're the most important person there, and rightfully so. So they all want attention. They all want the person in charge to be at their disposal. When that's 2,000 people, I'm having a hard day.
Yes.
I'm having a hard day. So it's definitely an experience. But I think one thing that me and you have definitely been through, it's like we've been in some really cool scenarios. I've partied like a rock star with rock stars. I know you have too, and those are some more stories we'll definitely get into at some point down the road. But the mental toll that it takes on us, because when we both came in, we were both actors. We were both striving for that starving artist. I'm going to do this, and then eventually wait for my big break. But we got so caught up, as most people do, especially in this scene out here.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole point of this, is talking to people who are thinking about getting into the service industry to make means to an end. Is that really conducive to your creative lifestyle, to who you are as a creative person? Because from my personal experience, it really stunted my growth as a creative person, and it really took years off of my life.
Oh, I lost myself completely.
Even though I was having the fucking time of my life wasn't growing. I wasn't growing as a person.
No. And when we say stunting that and getting caught up, it's like, it's hard not to get caught up. You're in the scene. You're surrounded by beautiful people, beautiful women all over the place. We have all these celebrities and athletes and millionaires and all
beautiful
these
men too. If you know,
yeah, whichever way you want to swing. Go. There's beautiful people everywhere, and the whole subconscious aspect, because most of these clubs are very, very hard to get into. And I think that was another ego part for us. It's like, here it is, there's celebrities waiting to get in, and we just walk in through the back door, go to the bar, and drink for free the entire night. Like, I don't think I've spent $1 in a nightclub in LA in at least the last 5 years. But that's because the community, and that's not to make me sound cool, but the community of us in the nightlife scene is very loving. We all look out for each other. Anytime somebody would come to my bar and I know you're a bartender somewhere, I'm taking care of you because you know what it's like.
Right. Even if we don't work in the same company.
Yeah, like I respect everybody in that service industry because I know how tough it is for you to do what you do. Like, constantly. I don't care what restaurant I'm at, how long it's taking, what goes wrong. I will never be mean to a service person. They don't deserve that.
Oh, no. That's why I'm a serial over tipper.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if you give me shitty service, I'm
you're going to get your 20%.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to get your 20% because karma, in the service industry, we definitely believe in that.
Oh, 100%.
Hardcore. One thing you said about getting into clubs is really difficult. Man, is being on one side of the rope compared to the other literally is night and day.
Oh, man, it's...
When you don't know anyone and you come to LA and you're trying to get in somewhere, man, you might as well move back home.
They're going to leave you outside that rope for the whole night. They don't care.
Right.
They don't care. Like, you might get the door guy feeling sorry for you at the end of the night if the place ain't full and they can slap you with a $200 barman for 35 minutes. But if you don't know somebody, I remember when I first moved here, they weren't letting me into a lot of places. I'd have to wait for one of the security guards. I remember one time I came to Greystone right when I first started working at SBE, and the guy who was working the door, I'm not going to say his name, was not a fan of letting me in. And Mike DeLuca, who was our head of security at the time, was like, nah, walked me in through the back and then literally walked me through the back door out to the front to be like, don't worry about him. He's good. I took care of him. The door guy's face, he didn't speak to me for like the next 2 months every time I saw him. And I worked with him at Emerson too, and he just wouldn't fuck with me.
And just so to give a little backstory, Mike, you were already working for the company.
Yep.
And you still couldn't get into the club. That same thing happened to me. I started back when Little Hyde was still open.
Yep.
The original Hyde. And I remember I was so excited. I'm like, oh my God, I work for the biggest company in Los Angeles. I'm going to go out. They left my ass on the sidewalk. And I was so embarrassed because I didn't have a plug with the security yet. So I was literally standing outside with my friends, like, but I work for the company. And they're like, sorry, dude, this is the most exclusive. Like, but I fucking work here.
Yeah. They don't care. I remember the one time I went to 14 for the first time. I had one of my buddies in town, and I got there, and they're like, "You're good. Your boy's not." I'm like, "He's visiting from New York. He's with me." They're like, and I literally had to like barter and like beg, and eventually they felt bad and let him in. But I'm just like, "Yo, this is what this is like."
Absolutely, and you show up with your guy friends.
You can't do that.
You can't do that.
That's a no-no. If you're going, I've learned a long time ago, if you're going out in the city, you go out by yourself. But I'm sure you dealt with this too, because I had friends like, we became pretty cool in the company, and like we were, like we had respect from a lot of people. So when I went places, I got in. I remember people would call me and be like, "Hey, you, what are you doing tonight? You want to go out?" I'm like, in my head, it's Sunday. I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" They're like, "You want to go to Greystone?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I'm like, "You guys got to weigh in?" They're like, "Oh, nah, we were thinking you could take care of that." I'm like, "Yeah, I know how that goes." Like, I don't, like, unless I would go out with somebody like you or a couple of the other guys that, like, everybody knew as well, I wasn't going out with people. Because I'm not, then I got to ask for favors, and then I owe somebody something. It's a whole thing.
Right.
Like, it's a whole game to it that I don't want to play.
And your friends will say they have, it's just, let's say it's like, oh, yeah, it's just me and my boy. And then they get there, and it's like 4 or 5 dudes deep, and then you're stuck, like.
And then they tell you, "Yo, I got 5 girls with me." All right, I can make that happen. And then it's one girl. And it's somebody's girlfriend, too, who's, like, dressed in sneakers and, a long T-shirt and a hat. I'm like, I can't, like, it's sad that it's an image thing, but it really is. Like, if you walk up to that door and you're not dressed the right way or not dressed the way that the night is, they're definitely not fucking with you.
Yeah, I mean, the door guy will literally scan you from head to toe to see what you look like.
I mean, dude, when I was in New York, I got that was one of the first jobs I did in nightlife. Is I was a door guy, and I was trained like. When somebody walks up, you scan them up and down. I'm looking at your watch. I'm looking at your hair. I'm looking at your nails. I'm looking at your clothes. I'm looking at your shoes. Like, what can I identify about you? What is it about you that sticks out that shows you were in some sort of upper echelons? If you're inside, 1, I need the vibe to be right, but 2, I also need people spending money at that bar. If I don't think you fall into those 2 categories, I got nothing for you. And again, unless you want to pay your way in.
Yeah.
And then, like, we hit people over the head with pricing. Like, dude, the fact that some people spend 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand on bottles, it's like, you could save starving children all over the world with this money, right? But, like, to each his own. And I can't say much because it paid our bill. It still pays my bills.
Do you remember seeing a bottle service, like, list, the price list for the first time?
Oh, yeah.
And being like, wait, $1,000 for this one bottle?
Or what about the one bottle
And
that
then
was
the one below?
$100,000? Remember those? Remember me and Danny used to work at this one party, and it's still my favorite party I've ever worked at, and it was called 14, and it was in Hollywood on Cahuenga, and it was our Sunday spot. We made stupid money. And the whole point of this party is the room was set up in this like rectangle shape with tables all around the end, and it was a champagne spraying party. So GA would be mostly females, and they'd be let in the middle, and then we'd have all this confetti fall, and people would buy packages of champagne to spray each other with. Bro, you remember people buying $100,000 worth of champagne to just spray all over the place?
Dom P.
To just spray.
To spray.
And like, remember the present. So the other thing that you have to do as a TSA is you have to do presentations with shoulders, which means when somebody buys a large package over a certain amount or more, we have to pick up the females on our shoulders and walk them out and dance around with them on our shoulders. My back kills me. It hurts so badly from 6 years of doing this.
Yes, absolutely.
But the crazy part about this is we would do that, and then we'd spray it all over the place. But then at the end of the night, our job was to clean up all of the confetti, which was like 3 pounds at this point on the floor, and it would take us 2 hours to clean it up.
Listen, it was hard work. From the time you get into your shift, the time you end, you're working nonstop.
Yeah.
There is, once you start TSAing for a little while, a little bit longer, you start learning
the
ins
hang
and
of
outs.
it. Yeah.
You get the hang of it, of when you can dip away from your table and fuck around, flirt with girls. But in the beginning, your head is on a swivel. You're just spinning, and you're like, oh, I gotta get this. And let's talk about what a particular night for a TSA? Let's say you're a new TSA.
Yeah.
Come in. What would a particular night be like?
I mean, we start off, you go in, you got to clock in right away. Don't forget to clock in, otherwise you're not getting paid. So, I mean, side work. We come in, get all the side work. We have to set up the whole club from A to Z. So when you guys get there, everything that's set on the tables, the buckets, the cups, the mixers, the booze, everything. We set that all up, set up back stock, figure out, I would have to figure out sections, who goes where. And that was a big thing too, because like we had a team of TSAs and some were great and some were not so much. So it's like you would give sections based on the volume. Like people don't realize there's a full science to it, where it's like, okay, cool, we got to make the most money tonight to cover the overhead, to cover all this. And I've learned way more of this now from the management side of things. But it's like, all right, cool. So if I have a guy who has the potential to spend, $100,000 tonight, well, I'm going to put my best cocktail server, my best TSA at that table to make sure he gets his best service. But then when you have the promoter tables, which are more of a headache, and I can't wait to have that episode, those you give to the people that don't really do the best work, and they're just there, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, there's an echelon of the workers. There's, you have your A-list workers and then down to Z, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me because I'm being from New Orleans, I was always taught work ethic and to work hard and just work with a sense of urgency. That was just instilled in me. But when I came to LA, and I don't know if this is a California thing, but people just have no sense of urgency, no work ethic. I would have to drill this into guys. Like, you need to speed it up.
I'm from New York on the same kick. Like, I'm on that hustle. Like, I couldn't understand it sometimes where I can literally I would have 5 or 6 tables on the stage, which is the highest selling tables, and get all of my work done and then do other people's work too. I'm like, how does this work? And we're making the same amount of money, but at the end of the day, as a TSA, we work for that overtip. So the fact that I was able to work my ass off put me in a position to make better money and then get better side tip. The best thing is I ended up moving over to another nightclub. They had the TSA tip line. So people will tip. I mean, we've been in nightclubs where people will tip us $100,000. But a lot of times they don't have cash on them. So there'll be a specific tip line for me where people would tip me $1,000, $2,000 just for being such a good TSA for them. And I'd walk out of the club more than almost anybody, and it would definitely piss off some of the cocktail waitresses. But
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're working harder than they are.
We're working different.
We're working different.
We're working different because, man, I got to give it to all the females who do that. Like, you're getting hounded. You're getting your ass groped the whole time. You're in this little costume and this little outfit that I'm sure you like, but most of the times you don't want to be in or don't feel like being in. And you're getting hounded and literally just degraded the entire time you're there. And you got to deal with that. Like, sometimes people want to be like, oh, the cocktail waitresses, they make too much money. I'm like, you deserve every penny from that sexual harassment you just had to deal with.
Yeah, and I'm glad you explained that because I'm not saying that we don't work.
Yes.
Like you said, we work differently.
Yeah. We have a physically harder job. They have a mentally harder job.
Mentally, definitely. And I mean, they're literally putting on a performance the whole night.
My favorite is all of the cocktail waitresses that will give out a fake number or give out a number to a client just so you can make them feel good and make them happy so we get the large overtip, but have zero interest. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some girls who want to make sure that guy's happy because some of them have the cocktail waitress dream and want to find some old dude to marry them and pay their bills. And let's just be real. That's how it is. If that's what you do, more power to you. You know what you want. But for a lot of them, it's like, they just don't. Some of my best friends were and still are cocktail waitresses, and they're nothing like the persona they have to put on to be in. I mean, bro, me and you were nothing like the persona we have to put on.
Right.
Like, I couldn't stand half the people I was serving, but my job is to give them good service.
Yes.
So,
and I have mad respect for the cocktail servers. I mean,
oh, absolutely.
As a TSA, especially if you got on a bad side of one of the better cocktail servers, you're going to be stuck at a shitty section.
But we were lucky enough where I had the ones, especially that I got to work with consistently, and like Britt and Sid and Celine, and they were such awesome cocktail waitresses. And because I was a good TSA, we worked so well together where it's like I would knew what they were thinking. They knew what I was thinking. We had the system set and we'd kill it. Like Sydney would only work with me. She would not work with any other TSA. But it's like, they've all told me, it's like, if you get a good TSA, we make their life easier. She would never leave the table. I would do it all, but I know at the end of the night, she's getting a fat overtip, and any cash, she's hitting me off.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely built those working relationships where we literally didn't have to say anything to each other. We knew exactly what the other person needed. And even just by like a glance or a nod, I knew exactly what my server wanted.
Yeah. And I mean, that was my biggest thing when it came to, the Skydecks and all the Insomniac shows. Like, I fly all over the world putting on the biggest party in the world. Like, EDC is one of the biggest festivals in the world, and I run the most exclusive part of the best party in the world. Everybody wants to be there, so you need to have the best service possible. And I was lucky enough that over the years, we've met so many really dope people that were awesome as individuals, but then also awesome at their job, and create this little community. Like, yo, man, I love my team. I'm so grateful for all of them. They have my back. We've been in some shitty situations that if it wasn't for them, I don't know what I would have done.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, like, that's the cool thing in nightlife. Like, yo, we all have each other's back. Like, the loyal people want to say, like, it's a really scummy industry. And, yeah, it can be. But I think it gets such a black light from the 1% of people that do stupid shit to stand out.
Absolutely.
Like, it's actually a really dope industry that I'm super grateful I've been a part of for such a long time.
Yeah, I wouldn't take any of that back because obviously I wouldn't be who I am now.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have learned what I've learned now. But would I have done things differently? Would I? Of course, 100%.
I mean, brother, I think at that point, like, we've both just gone down some pretty dark holes.
Yeah.
And I think it was because more of the fact, like, we both came out here to act. Like we said, we got caught up. Man, I there was points where I was so shallow and so low, and my ego ran my life. I think something that we're leaving out of is that the money that you make for the amount of, like, yo, let's be real, man. We would get to those clubs, they would open at 11. We'd get there at 10. We're done by 2:30. And then technically nobody's there for 11, so nobody really comes in until 12. So from 12 to 2, we're running like mad, close out. But we really only worked for 2.5 hours and pulled in some nights around $800 to $1,000. Like, you can't beat that.
And that's what it is. The money will blind you quickly.
Yeah.
When 14 originally started, they had brought me over there from, I think I was at Colony when they started the 14 party.
Oh, at the regular Hyde.
Yeah, the first
the
original
original
OGs.
Hyde.
Shout out to my OGs. Anyways, when I got there was maybe 20, 30 people there. And it was just a bunch, the workers were just hanging out and drinking. And then, like, the word started catching on that there's, like, this really cool summer day party. And when it started really banging, like, I remember the first shift I walked with like $700 or $800. I was like, I just sat in my car looking at all this money. I'm like, how did I just make $800 having fun?
Yeah.
And I think that was the moment. Like, I had made money before with SBE, but when 14 started popping off and I started making $1,000 a Sunday, that's when I got hooked.
Yep.
And it was just all downhill from there.
So Sundays were just lit.
Yeah.
We got after it on Sundays.
Sundays were lit, and then you lose your entire Monday,
and then the older we got, it would be my Monday and then Tuesday.
And then Tuesday, yeah. Tuesday night, you're like, oh, I feel normal again. I got to go back to work tomorrow.
I would have to go back on Tuesday nights.
Yeah. We're definitely jumping around in our nightlife career. How about we talk about a little bit of before you got to LA and where you kind of started before you got into nightlife.
Yeah, I was always in hospitality. Coming out of New York, I always wanted to do the acting thing. I didn't really go as gung-ho for it as much as I wanted to. But when I had the opportunity to move out here, I did. But I've been in restaurants. I started being a busboy at 14 years old. I started bar backing at 16. In New York, it was 18 to bartend. So I got myself a bartending job at 18. I started doing the door at 20. And then I moved out here, and I was like, all right. Doing the door was my favorite. That's where I got a lot of my kicks out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where, like, you can be a dick being a doorman. So it was...
So you were letting the people in?
Yeah, I was the doorman in a couple of pretty dope exclusive nightclubs in New York around like 21, 22. Like I was one of the, I got in, so I was like I said, I was 18 when I was bartending at some of these clubs, and I was the young little kid that people wanted to corrupt in a sense, and I was, I knew a bunch of people throughout the scene just from sports and everything my whole life, so it was an easy transition, and people's my thing. I love people. I love to talk. So you're going to put me at a spot where I get to talk to them and then judge them? Ooh, sign me up. Sign me up. So.
Yeah, I started in New Orleans. My first service industry job was a restaurant on Bourbon Street. Mm-hmm. And I was around 17. And I also worked the door for the restaurant, but it wasn't as cool as that.
yeah.
I had to get people in to want to eat the food, and I was never a big talker. Like, I hated
Really?
approaching people.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, now it's different.
it's a little different, but I was always kind of an introvert, and I still am when it comes to strangers and crowds. Like, it does make me, I get anxiety.
Yeah.
So for me to have to be on the street and talk to hordes of people to come in, like, I never was comfortable with that. But when I did
So how'd you do it though?
I honestly, I would copy what the other guy was doing, who was like really outgoing. This guy would sing songs. I never did that, but this dude, like, I honestly hated that job. It was, they said you bark. You're like a bark. Go outside and bark, because you're like literally just, hey, come and check this menu out. And I hated it. But then after a year of working there, they moved me up to a wait staff, and that's kind of where I really excelled. And because it was more of, I had more to do. I could run around. I could show my urgency, my hospitality, my work ethic, and then I started getting comfortable with the tables. And like, I would, when a table would sit down, I would just go and sit at the table with them and be like, "How you doing?" Because this is New Orleans. Like, if you've ever been to New Orleans, it's really laid back.
Yeah.
And things like that are expected. If somebody did that here, they'd be like, "What the fuck? Why are you sitting at my table?" But that's how you break the ice with certain people.
So how much of it was it for you? One, a culture shock, but then two, how were you able to adjust? Obviously, like you said, you could do that in New Orleans, but here is a very, very different way of dealing with the clientele, and you go from just people being tourists to the clientele of the high-end celebrities, the rich and the famous. So how was that adjustment?
It was like a slap in the face, the adjustment from serving people on Bourbon Street, which, it's generally known as a dirty free-for-all, to the bouginess of LA and your personality. You really have to adjust to people out here. And then you also have to get used to being treated like shit, which is one thing that after a few years of working in LA, I wouldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care who you were, if you treated me like shit, I would either not serve you. Easier done as a bartender, not a server.
But I think the reason why me and you were able to get, because I was the same way. For the first year, I took it because I thought I had to, and I was like, "Yo, fuck that! I'm a human being."
Right.
Like, as a TSA, we're looked at as the lowest form. Like, some tables wouldn't even, like, the buyers and some of the people at the table wouldn't even look me in the face. They wouldn't talk to me, and I'm like, "Bro, fuck you."
Right.
Like. But I think because I did the same thing, I stood up for myself. But I think because we stood up for ourselves, what I learned with a lot of people here is it's a respect. They want to see how much they can push you. They want to see how much they get out of you. Like, so obviously I'm not telling everybody out there to just go and tell somebody, fuck you. That's not how you do it. But there are ways to do it. Because I think, for me at least, it got a little bit easier when I started putting my foot down. I'm like, yo, I'm not going to take this shit. I started getting more respect from people for it.
Absolutely. Because you got to show them that you're still a person. Just because you have more money than me, that doesn't mean you're better than me. And like we, in the service industry, you just know, do not fuck with the people that are serving you.
No.
Anything. Like in the movie Waiting.
Oh, I love that movie.
You know what I mean?
It's so good. It's so good.
That's what Ryan Reynolds says in that movie. Don't fuck with the wait staff or something like that.
No, don't.
Because, dude, we're handling your food, your drinks. We're handling your night.
Yeah, and it's like, do you think screaming at me is going to get me your bottles and your food faster? No. I'm going to purposely take my fucking time. Like, people who would, like, give me lip at the rope and waiting to get in, I don't care if you have a table reserved. You're going to wait now until I get through everybody else, and I'm going to come back to you. And if you want to be a dick, I'm going to make you wait again. It's like, I don't get that concept and why people haven't realized that kindness is going to get you so much further. It's called hospitality. It just doesn't make fucking sense, man.
Okay, so you get to LA. How do you get into SBE? How do you get your big first nightlife job?
I had a buddy of mine that I moved out here with. Actually, he was living out here. He got me in because he was working at Emerson at the time. Chris Scally was his name. And then from there, he got me an interview where Create was opening for New Year's. I moved here in December. So New Year's was going to be the first big night, and then we had the big night there, but then we shut down for a little bit. So I remember going a little high and just being like, I literally went to the GM there. I'm like, yo, I know you don't know me. I work over here. I'm not working for a while. If you need anybody, just let me know. And I remember 2 weeks later, he called me literally at 8:30. He's like, yo, can you be here an hour? I was like, yeah, absolutely, no problem. And then I jumped and I just kept on picking up shifts like that. And then eventually I became just a regular, and I had no problem picking. I didn't know anybody here. I didn't have friends. The only thing I did was went to the gym and played basketball. What most people don't understand is how high pressure and intense nightlife actually is. And the overwhelmingness of it. It consumes you. It's a lot.
Yeah, if you ever played sports, and the first real game that you play, it's like this madness, like everywhere around you. Everything's moving is so fast, and you have to make split-second decisions, and you don't trust yourself. But then after you start playing more games and you start getting a lot better, then
it becomes
you'll
instinctive.
know this. Everything slows down. So for like a more seasoned TSA, it's like there's all this craziness, but I feel like I was in the zone. Like everything was slow motion around me.
It was flow.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point now with now where I'm at with management, my job is to make sure everybody else is doing their job as the director. But even more so, I'm so good at my job because I put out fires before they even start. Like, because we can see everything so much, I can tell exactly where the hole is.
Yeah.
And where something will fall through the cracks.
Yeah. And before you get to that spot, like that zone, it's still stressful. And then especially if you've been doing it for a long time, like you said, you started at Emerson, right?
I started at Greystone. No, Create. I started at.
You started at Create. That's right.
Create, and then I went to Hyde and Emerson, like right off the bat. So I was fluctuating between those three, but Create was like the hub where I was at, and then I would back and forth between Hyde and Emerson.
That's right. That's right. So when you were at Create, I think I had opened Emerson, and I was lead there, and I was already at the tail end of my TSA journey. Like, I was miserable. I lived on Franklin and Highland, and Emerson was on La Brea and in Hollywood, right? So
yeah, right.
I was,
there. It was my house right
4
before
blocks,
that.
maybe.
Yeah.
So this was my walk to work. I would leave my house, walk through the Hollywood and Highland Mall, get into on Hollywood, go to the liquor store, stock up on the little airplane bottles, like 2 in each pocket. So before I even walked into the door at Emerson, I was already buzzing.
I can't wait till we have so many more people on, and people that we've been in the scene with that not only can tell their stories, but can really highlight on a lot of different things that we're talking about. Because I know so many people have dealt with the same issues, have gone through the same bullshit, and have their variation of the story and what it meant to them. So I really can't wait to hear some of everybody else's opinions and journeys, because I know how much it affected ours, and I know how much it affected some of our good friends as well.
Yeah, and I think for the audience, whoever's listening right now, is, we want to get to how mentally this changed us at the end, and where we ended up now, where we are now, post nightlife, or if you're still in nightlife, right? Like, how are you coping right now with, especially in our current climate, everything that's going on? Did your life get better when you quit? Did you digress? Did you progress? Did you move forward?
If you're still in it, how are you coping with everything going on in the climate that we're in? How are you looking to progress? Because we know the entire hospitality nightlife industry has changed because of COVID. It will never be the way it used to be for at least a few years, if it ever goes back to the normalcy.
It's insane.
But I think we're doing this at the right time, because I think for a lot of us, what we realize is we can't go back to that type of normalcy.
No.
It was complacent. It was toxic. But we were all so comfortable in the controlled chaos that we were in that you couldn't leave. So I think something I know we really want to do is just highlight a lot of those things, but not to make it sound so negative. I've learned so many amazing things that have helped me get to where I am now, with launching my mental health nonprofit and being this motivational speaker I'm doing, and a lot of things you've learned on the acting side that you're now implementing into your life, and the amazing people that we've met that are doing amazing things because of the network they've created and the lessons they've learned and the growth that they've made from that nightlife journey.
Definitely. And also we want to give advice to people who are, let's say, new to LA, or any market that you go to, that you need to make money, but you're a creative person and you're thinking about, okay, well, hey, let me work nightlife or service industry because the hours work for me. Like, we want to give advice to actually how to navigate that. And if and tell you if you should or should not do it.
Yeah.
Because there's consequences to every decision you make. So we want to touch on that, and we also want to touch on how you got out of nightlife, how I got out of nightlife, because I had a pretty extreme reason to get out.
Absolutely.
And if you tune in next time, we'll touch more on that.
Yeah. But just how we can grow from it and kind of change the stigma a little bit, because there really is such a negative notion when it comes to being a nightlife person. And I'm sure you've gotten it just like I have when you introduce yourself to people and like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm in nightlife. They automatically go to a certain place. And it's really not fair to judge all of us on that, because all of us, a majority of us in that industry are so much more than that industry. And we shouldn't be judged on it.
Exactly. That you need to change your outlook on life. Period, because you don't know what people are going through. You don't know what a job entails. You don't know what these people really are like. So that's perfect that you said that. We're going to bring to light what these people really are, because we're not all stuck up assholes working at this job.
No.
Stay tuned for part 2. And now, back to the chaos.
Yo, Danny J. Gomez, what's up, brother?
Oh, man, Mike, it's so good to be here.
I love that we get to go over this floor plan now and really give an understanding of what we're doing here. And we're doing this a little bit different and outside the box. We shot the first episode a few months ago, and we were really excited about this. And I think the coolest part of this podcast so far is the way we've been going. We've had some amazing conversations, and I think people are really going to get a really dope behind the scenes of what it looks like, right? Of what the nightlife feels like, what we go through, the different struggles people have really had.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I noticed after, we're 13, 14 interviews that we've done, is that I worked with some of these people for years and years and years. And then when they sat down here, I learned more about them in an hour than I did in those, 5+ years. Just actually getting to know somebody, what they were going through on the inside. It's different from when you're partying or like making money or, just having fun with somebody. It's different.
And like we've seen so many different sides of people, but the common theme is that all these people have such incredible stories and they're such amazing people. And to kind of go back to what you're saying, we've shot 14 episodes. We shot episode 1, me and you. And we riffed and we had a great time. And we just thought we were here to talk about the nightlife and tell cool stories. And then it's really evolved. And since I've been able to launch A Mind's Pursuit, and I love how much you've supported me and Nick has supported me and everybody on who's come on the show has talked about it. The big thing behind A Mind's Pursuit that pushes everything is the changing of the stigmas. And this past year, we've gone through so much as a culture, as a society, but as an industry in this nightlife and festival setting and hospitality world, that we didn't get any help. And we all really had to rely on each other, just like we did all those years ago and all these nightclubs we ran and operated. And there's a stigma behind nightlife that, people are kind of douchey or they're egotistical, and we are so far from that. And the family of people that have come through that's what we want to highlight. Like, yes, there is a mental toll. Yes, there is the struggle. So let's help people understand how to get through that.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things right now, and something that I've realized from talking to people, is that we're all looking for connection, and just sitting down and having a conversation on a deep level. I think that's so gone in society now. People just rarely tell their friends or even their loved ones, hey man, this is how I'm feeling. I feel like shit. I'm depressed. And it's these conversations that we've had with, I don't know, I don't want to call them strangers, because we're not strangers, but in a sense, the stuff that I learned from them, that we've learned from them, I was like, wow. I was like on the outside looking in, really.
Yeah, and because we were in this place how quickly we ran up this nightlife totem pole, and we always thought we had to have this certain image about us, and we had to put on this facade and this face, and we couldn't really be honest about what was going on. I went through the toughest struggles in my life when I was probably at the pinnacle of my career in this nightlife industry, and nobody knew because we couldn't talk about it.
Yeah, you always had to, look cool. You had to act cool. I mean, the industry we're in is about you got to portray a certain sense of status. You know,
Yeah.
you can't be throwing a party looking depressed.
Yeah.
Or acting depressed, even though that's what we were sometimes on the inside.
Yeah, and we just had to keep on going, and that's what led to a lot of the dark times because we had to mask that. So by drinking, by outside curriculars, like we've heard people tell us so many stories about, you know, the hard times and what they had to do to get through it and hide it at the same time, which is wild.
Yeah, and I think that's if anybody's ever wondering why we named the podcast Chaos Controlled is because we went through a lot of chaos.
We thrived.
And we thrived in it. And in the end, we, fairly came out unscathed and smarter and better. And in a way, we controlled it.
Yeah.
But every day we're controlling chaos. That's just life.
100%.
It related to me. We went through some hard times in the club scene, and some of the things that we did just to get through shifts. And it's just it was hard. So hearing other people saying that they went through that as well, it just makes me feel like I wasn't such a fuck up.
No, and you weren't alone, and and that's another thing that we want to do with this show. There's so many people out there that work in the hospitality industry all over the world, and I'm sure they feel a lot of the same ways that we felt in the past. And again, we want to give people tips on how to get through the insanity, and it does take a mental toll. So how to really discipline yourself to be in this industry and to keep moving forward. And then how, as we as an industry keep on progressing and becoming better and learning how to work better together and learning how to operate a staff better together and just talking about things that really matter to people that make the experience that much better.
Absolutely.
We knew about this, and this is something we wanted to touch on, but I don't think we realized the depth of it is the family concept. We were in the trenches with each other. We went through some shit. We are all tight. And I think we've said this before a couple of times now, just about how if you go to a bar, me and you were to go out somewhere, and we'd see a bunch of people, and we met them, and we found out they work in a nightclub, all of a sudden we're shooting the shit on nightlife, people we know, places we've been, and instantly we're all homies.
Yeah. No, and I definitely want to actually thank you, Mikey, because when you came in, we were friends and we were co-worker friends, but we really didn't hang out outside of work.
Nah.
And I didn't even know that after I got hurt that you would be one of the only and few people that actually called me, physically called me. I'm not just talking about a text or a social media. And that meant the world to me. I mean, we wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for you reaching out and seeing how I was doing.
Yeah.
Because, for those of you who don't know what happened, it was a Friday. I went mountain biking. I was supposed to go to work that night, but life threw me a fucking curveball, and I had an accident and ended up paralyzed. And that was the end of my nightlife service industry career.
Yeah.
So cut to 2 years later, you're calling me and hitting me up and just wanting to shoot the shit, and this baby was born, really.
And it's been such a cool experience. And again, like you said, to know that we weren't in it alone, and to see that everybody we were working with now is much more open about some of the things they were struggling with because of the conversations we're having here. And to be able to push that out into the world, and then to just really go deep with people and go beyond the surface and really learn. Like you said, we've known these people. Some of these people sitting in this chair have been some of my closest friends from the last 10 years. And I didn't know about things. And I'm like, I was with you all the time. How did I not pick up on that?
Yeah.
So it's wild to see how many how many things people really have going on.
Right. And that makes you think, even, let's just put nightlife aside, and this is whoever's listening. This is for everybody in life. There's people that think you're close with, and you really have no idea what's going on with that person. So, I mean, I think it's good that we're opening up. I mean, the past month that we've been together has been one of the most therapeutic and open times in my life, because it's stuff that I haven't talked about with anyone.
With anybody.
And it's only because a lot of people can't relate.
No, and I feel like we're making it a little heavy, which it's not, because we laugh a lot on this show.
We do.
There is man, the stories that you'll hear from festivals to nightclubs to celebrities to some of the biggest scale events in the world, like we got people, we've been through some wild shit. Like we live, for us as a reality, we're 1% of the population. Like what we do, most people dream about doing. And for us, it's like, fuck, again? Shit.
Yeah, and like telling your friends that, Leonardo DiCaprio was in your club at one point was like the most amazing thing ever.
Yeah.
But then after a while, I was like, oh, he was in the fucking club again,
Yeah. Like it's just, there's just so many different layers to this industry, so many different layers to the people in it, because it takes a certain type of individual to work in this industry and to really have the gump and the backbone to really stand up for themselves. And like, that's how you make it. Like this isn't one of those things where you just, you're nice to everybody and you'll get to the top. It's like, you got to put your head down and push your way through and work your ass off.
Yeah.
If you want to remain.
Yeah. Cause I mean, if you can't cut it, you're going to get cut.
Yeah.
And we all know in the service industry that when you're cut, your ass is going home.
And it's just been even cool to see like our producer, Nick, who has not been in nightlife and doesn't know any of these people, but just his genuine laughs as we're sitting here the whole time. So like, Nick, tell us, what have you seen from this that's something outside the box and different than your usual podcast or your usual conversation?
Yeah, it's been super interesting because, my dad grew up in restaurants and stuff like that. I thought I knew. You think, oh yeah, well I've been a waiter at this restaurant, or I worked in the kitchen at this restaurant, or wherever you are, and you're like, yeah, I bet I know what's going on in LA. I feel like it's the same thing, but there are celebrities around, and that's super cool. It turns out that's not the case at all. You think but you have no idea. And it's been really awesome to learn about all of that and to see like what it really is like in some of these places.
Yeah.
Hearing the stories of, such and such a celebrity doing this person doing that, or, someone literally pulling down their pants and taking a dump in the middle of the dance floor. Or
that has happened. We seen it.
It's true.
Or finding out the common grounds of how many people have smoked weed with Snoop Dogg.
We've all smoked weed with Snoop.
Because all of LA has smoked weed with Snoop Dogg,
In
apparently.
the nightlife industry, we all have.
So yeah, it's been super, super eye-opening, honestly, to what the industry is, what you think it is, what it isn't, and just the real stories of the people in it. The real, true goings on behind the scenes in some of these places that are world renowned.
One of the things that we want to do is, you're going to hear a crazy story every episode. So I think the coolest way for us to kick it out is we should probably tell some really dope stories from our past real quick, leave them on a high note, and then you're not going to want to miss the first episode as we kick off, and you're going to want to stay tuned.
I want to tell you one of my favorite stories because I look up to this person, both of these guys actually. They're staples in Hollywood, but I was working at Colony, and there's like this long hallway in the kitchen that leads to the exit to the parking lot. And through this exit is usually where like big celebrities will come and they'll go in and out so they're not seen by the front door paparazzi. And I'm just like miserable back there because I'm actually I'm wiping down all the ice buckets from the night and I'm stocking them on on the shelves. And I hear like the music on on the floor just, and all of a sudden I hear like, woo, yeah. And I'm looking around like, where's that coming from? And I look down the hallway, and at the very end of the hallway, I see two guys turn the corner, and they're fucking just sprinting, or like they're doing like a skip, full speed, and they just have like the biggest smiles on their faces, and they're looking at each other and like, high-fiving, and they run past me, and they run out the fucking door, and I'm like, fucking Leonardo DiCaprio and Kevin Connolly. Like, looking like the two happiest children in the world. And I'm like, this is the biggest movie star on the planet. Just skip by me. And E. I love you, E. I love Entourage, but I went from like being miserable to just having like the big ass smile on my face. And then also going back to being miserable because I was like, I want to be that. I want to go with them. But yeah, I mean, just like, and those things happened a lot. Like the reason I tell that story is because we were just so numb to like seeing celebrities. But that was the one that made me laugh.
That's funny.
Tickles my heart.
There's been a lot of wild stories on this show. Plenty of them have had to do with me and some of the stupid, wild things I have encountered throughout my career. But what I'm going to tell is a little bit more where I kind of realized I had such an amazing family in this industry. So I operate and oversee the Skydecks for a lot of the largest festivals. And it was EDC Vegas 2 years ago. And it was Saturday night. It was Diplo surprise set. And the deck was full and raging. And all of a sudden, this crazy windstorm comes out of nowhere. It's like 40-mile-an-hour winds. But because we're high up on a deck, we have to evacuate the entire deck. I'm talking there is a lot of money out on this floor, a lot of champagne. It's Saturday night, midnight, the peak of the show. There's fireworks going up. Diplo and Trilix are doing a back-to-back that was unannounced. Like, people are losing their minds, and we have to evacuate everybody. Yo, want to talk about panic level and stress level? Had to calm myself down, breathe, like, all right, here, go to everybody. Within 30 minutes, we had the entire deck cleared, all the booths accounted for, everybody off safely. And I'm just looking around, and my team's still with me, and I'm like, yo, man, these dudes got, like, and these girls, like, yo, I can't express enough how grateful I am for my Skydeck team because we're a family, and, like, yo, man, we've been through some shit, but, like, yo, they had my back. Like, that was one of the craziest things that ever happened, and I needed everybody to react exactly the way I had it planned out. And not only did they did it, but they went above and beyond, and, like, yo, they take care of me. So, like, I am beyond grateful, and I wanted to tell a story about that for the people who listen to this show and think a certain way, and to everybody who's helped me along the way to get to this point and be here, and for us to be able to tell this story. Like, I am so thankful and appreciative because it was not always easy. It was dark. It was hard. I'm sure I wasn't easy to work with on a lot of occasions, but I am just super grateful for all of this. So that's my story. We're gonna kind of wean out on. And so, man, on that note, Danny, what are you excited for, and what can't you wait for everybody to get a glimpse of?
You know what? People who are listening, I really just want you to open yourself up to other people's experiences, and don't judge people because you don't know what they're going through. But also enjoy yourself. You know, laugh a little. We want this to be something that you can just kind of maybe forget about what's going on in your life, and hopefully it will help you, you know, to bring a little smile to your face and a little happiness in your day. I don't know. Corny as fuck.
I'm hyped, man. And I can't wait for people to tune back in every week, and I promise you it's definitely going to be something worth listening to. People got a lot to say, and we're here to help them share their story. We're here to help them heal. We're here for people to learn tips and tricks to stay sane in this nightlife world, and to have a lot of fun in the process and laugh a lot and just really help each other cope during these hard times.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Controlled Chaos, hosted by Mikey Tableman and Danny J. Gomez, producer and audio engineer Nick Dewar. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review on the Apple Podcasts app or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Join us next week for more chaos.